Yes.
All right. Crowd thin, but they still want to hear, the ones that are here. They want to hear more than... All right. We're back in open session. We go to new business number 1. The floor belongs to Councilman Bill Jensen.
Which is new business number 2.
We're right. We're going to do new business number 2 first.
Okay, I'll be kind of brief. We all know what the questions are. I just want to say that this was a heck of a team effort, I thought. Councilman Gant suggested the Paris Accord resolution, and I very much appreciate that. I got stuck being secretary, typing it up, plagiarizing from Wake County. But it was good, and Councilwoman Dozer added a couple more of the whereas that we needed to tie the thing together. And Councilwoman Killingsworth helped out with making me feel good when I was worried. So I just wanted to say this is certainly not mine. This is all of us. And with that, being as Councilman Gant suggested the resolution on the Paris climate agreement, I would like you to, if you don't mind, read it.
Okay. So I'm going to just read the whole thing here. Okay. This is a resolution 19-0205-05, Town of Apex resolution supporting the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Whereas in November and December of 2015, the 21st Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change took place in Paris, and whereas the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has warned of the consequences of failing to limit the rise of global average temperature to at most 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times, beyond which the impacts of global warming could cause a threat to humanity and could lead to irreversible climate change, and whereas the UNFCCC COP21, an agreement that was reached by all 195 participating state parties, including the United States of America, and whereas the signatories of the Paris Climate Agreement agreed to a series of steps to address climate change, and whereas American compliance with the terms of the Paris Climate Agreement would lead to business opportunities for companies in the smart grid, renewable power, and efficiency industries, and whereas the 17 states, including North Carolina, have joined in the U.S. Climate Alliance with the goal of benefiting the economy and strengthening and protecting communities, and whereas endorsing the Paris Climate Agreement is consistent with both the North Carolina Constitution, Article, you can read that, requiring the conservation, protection, and preservation of state lands and waters and the public trust, and Executive Order Number 80, North Carolina Commitment to Address Climate Change and Transition to Clean Energy Economy, enacted on October 29th, 2018, and whereas the town of Apex is located within a worldwide hub of such companies with over 150 companies and 15,800 employees in clean tech, and whereas the town of Apex continues to work to improve sustainability within the town through installations of renewable energy systems on town buildings and promotion of renewable energy systems on all development within the town, and whereas the goal of compliance with the objectives and measures of the Paris Climate Agreement would be consistent with current policies of the town of Apex and set a bold but achievable goals for the future, and further, whereas compliance with the Paris Climate Agreement by the town of Apex and other government agencies would produce economic opportunity for employers and employees in the greater Wake County area, and whereas on June 1st, 2017, the United States announced that withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, and whereas the town of Apex and the rest of the planet would be adversely affected by the failure of the world to achieve the objectives of the Paris Climate Agreement, and whereas a diverse group of states, cities, local governments, corporations, and nonprofits have produced an open letter committing themselves to provide the leadership necessary to meet the United States commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement, and whereas it would be in the interest of the citizens of the town of Apex for the town council to join in the efforts to meet the United States commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Apex Town Council and that the town of Apex joins its fellow state and local governments in endorsing the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, that the town would commit itself in its own operations and policies to continuing its efforts for sustainability and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and promote and enable renewable energy systems in all developments within the town of Apex. Okay,
All right.
that's it.
Good job. Thank God I didn't have.
That's a little longer than I remember.
I appreciate it.
It's pretty
You got the
long.
long one.
Yeah.
At any rate, well, we all know what it is. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
And I'll second.
All right, discussion on the motion for the resolution?
It sounds really great. I wasn't really on the team, but that's okay. I don't get picked for every team.
I regret because I did call others.
You did call me, and I owed you a phone call. I'm sorry. Look, this is no different than us telling the federal government to build or not build a wall or the Capitol in Jerusalem. This has zero impact on the. There's just no reason to do this. I think. Look, I believe in solar energy and trying to save the taxpayers' money on public buildings, but the Paris Climate Accord. I'm glad that we withdrew from it because it was just a global redistribution of wealth shouldered by developed countries in the world. So I'm glad that we're not in that, and I do not support this as a town.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm glad that this resolution has been put forward, and I look forward to supporting this.
Yeah, and for me, being, I founded the environmental committee because it was something that it wasn't in the issue that I work on every day, so I thought it was important to try to learn more about it, so when citizens come and say, this certain thing may impact me environmentally, then I wanted to learn more about it and see if it actually did or if it did not. And so I appreciate working on this, and I added some of the whereases related to what I know that the state is doing. And so once you put forth something that says this is consistent with an executive order, what an executive order does from a president or a governor says, now there can be programs that roll out related to that. So it could be funding, it could be, initiatives, but now waiting to see what the executive order would do. And so I'd like us to be positioned if there was some funding related to this.
And I introduced it because I'm a lifelong environmentalist and studied environmental science in college and then got a PhD in atmospheric science with a dissertation that had the word climate in the title. So I think it's kind of a rare privilege that someone who is involved with the science, a small part of the science of climate change, has the ability to vote on something like this. And I don't think anybody has any illusions that the town of Apex by itself can affect anything globally, but there's leadership that can be had by Apex and all the governments up through the United States to take part in these kind of agreements. And so I'm really excited to be able to vote for this, and probably one of the more important things I think vote I've had on the council.
I'd like to just briefly say, it's a guiding resolution, and it's in some respects, and it doesn't require anything of anybody with respect to the Paris Climate Agreement specifically.
Much like the Paris Agreement.
Pardon me?
Much like the Paris Agreement,
Much like the Paris Agreement.
actually.
And it doesn't impact economically. And in fact, as we're doing this and implementing some of our goals, which we'll talk about next, we're actually going to be saving money long-term for the taxpayers with the cost of solar energy coming down to the point where we can put these things in and we will come out ahead. I estimated 6% per year to begin with on the one that we're doing. And I think other ones, as they come down the line, will even be better.
All right.
So it's an economic.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. That passes by a 4-to-1 margin, so we'll now move to new business number 1, which is the goals of achieving 100% clean energy.
Okay. A resolution, and I'll read everything too. Mine's shorter than yours is, so. A resolution endorsing the goals of achieving 100% clean energy by 2050. Whereas the Apex Town Council has a long-standing proactive position toward the conservation of energy and the protection of natural resources for the betterment of the citizens of Apex. And whereas climate change is expected to increasingly impact North Carolina's temperatures, precipitation, and sea level, with harmful consequences in coming years. And whereas a transition to renewable energy sources will reduce the emissions of pollutants that affect the air and the water quality in the town of Apex. And whereas a just transition to 100% renewable energy can benefit affordable housing projects and low-income communities that are disproportionately impacted by fossil fuel pollution. And whereas the United States Conference of Mayors in 2017 passed a resolution supporting 100% clean renewable energy community-wide for cities and towns by 2035. And whereas the town of Apex endorses the Paris Climate Agreement in order to continue its efforts towards sustainability and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And we'll get there. Whereas in July 2018, the Apex Town Council adopted a budget with $500,000 earmarked for solar PV systems on town buildings. And whereas in October 2018, the Wake County Board of Commissioners unanimously adopted a resolution endorsing the goal of transitioning 80% of energy consumed by the county operations from fossil fuel-based energy to renewable sources by 2035, and the goal of achieving 100% clean energy by 2050. And whereas the Apex Town Council promotes the utilization of renewable energy in the private sector through the reduction of town fees and the simplification of the permitting and inspection process. And whereas clean energy by 2000, there's a little error here. Clean energy by 2035, it says it's 2050, we'll have to change that, is defined as transitioning 100% of energy consumed and stored by the town of Apex operations from fossil fuel-based energy to renewable energy, including solar, wind, tidal, wave, hydroelectric, and geothermal. Whereas the town of Apex intends to transition the municipal vehicle fleet to plug-in hybrid vehicles or all-electric vehicles to the extent possible. And whereas the goal of 100% clean energy may be achieved through the investment of town of Apex funds in renewable energy projects that offset the consumption of non-renewable energy purchased by the town from Duke Energy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Apex, that the Apex Town Council endorses the goal of transitioning to 80% clean energy by 2035 and 100% clean energy by 2050. That Apex joins its fellow state and local governments in advocating for the use of clean energy where such action results in reasonable and foreseeable economic payback and is subject to budget availability. That the town of Apex commits itself in its own operations, policies, and guidelines to continuing its efforts towards clean energy, sustainability, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, and the reduction of fossil fuel use. And that the Apex Town Manager is authorized to support efforts towards the goal of 80% clean energy by 2035 and 100% clean energy by 2050 through fiscally responsible budget expenditures and procedures. That the Apex Town Council encourages all businesses and commercial sectors of Apex to adopt similar goals in their operations. I think mine was longer than yours. It seemed like it.
Where does this fit on our town priorities? I don't remember talking anything about this in our 4 quadrants that we just had a big discussion about Friday. Because I think this is way off base from our town priorities. We've all talked about transportation in town, how terrible transportation is. I don't even know if we know how much this is going to cost, honestly. We talked about a budget allocation of what are you proposing in this?
We did $500,000 to purchase renewable energy, which we will be getting basically a conservation return on investment of about 6%.
Right, but there's no expense already like itemized for 100% convertible. I don't know about you, but if a fire truck shows up to my house and wants to put a fire out, I don't want the battery running out.
You what?
I don't want the battery running out on the fire hose pump. I mean, what's the feasibility
If you read
of
the
this?
resolution, it allows for that sort of thing, quite frankly.
This is
And if you read the resolution, it is foreseeable economic payback.
How
mean,
much,
it's
how much
not-
money are we talking about investing on an annual basis into this? I mean, that's a number that I don't even think we put a finger on. And all the needs we have in our town of the 4 quadrants, what was there, 50 items maybe in those 4 quadrants we just talked about? I don't think this was even sniffing close to the top 4 quadrants, and we only had 4 quadrants.
Well, that's fine. The whole thing is, in the long term, we will save town citizens money by.
Look, climate change is real. I believe in it. Look at the history of the Earth. We had ice ages. We melted out of ice ages. Right? We went through that whole process. And for man to think over the last, 150 years, maybe we've had any impact on that, I think is.
If you look at the carbon dioxide amounts in the atmosphere, going above now 400 parts per million, starting out at, I think, 250, or you might have a better number, we're definitely having an effect. I can't imagine that you can't think we're having an effect. In effect, what it is, it's like if you go to bed at night and you have a blanket on you and you're feeling pretty good, and then somebody comes in and dumps another blanket on you, and that's what carbon dioxide is doing in the atmosphere, is dumping another blanket on this earth. Pretty soon you're going to be sweating and you're not going to be comfortable. That's what's happening. That's the most fundamental aspect of it.
If solar energy and renewable energy was awesome and efficient and productive, and I think a lot more people would be using it, right? We wouldn't have to mandate builders to put solar on their projects because homeowners would be like, I want it, sign me up. That's where I think America is that we should give people the choice to put it on their house. And for the town to make a resolution like this and have no idea how much this is going to cost us, we have so many other priorities. I don't think we need to be wasting our money on something like this. Look, I'm in full support of putting solar on public buildings. I think it's great because we're spending less taxpayer money to buy energy from Duke. I think that's great.
That's what this is all about.
No, this is everything. This is
It's
converting
everything, but that
all of our
includes-
cars, all of our fire trucks, all of our police trucks. It's just,
It is a goal, and if you read it, there is allowance for not being able to do it. So you do what you can do, and basically that's what the resolution is saying. Now, down line, if we're going to go 100% renewable energy, then we will have to,
which is what this calls for, right?
in the long term,
At 2050. Right?
2050. I'm not going to worry about 2050.
Oh,
So, but we'd have to actually end up partnering with Cary or one of the other towns and develop a solar farm someplace or a wind farm someplace. But that would be an economic item that we would look at that time. And realistically, if we wanted to do a bond issue, we could borrow money at 3%. We're making on a solar farm probably 7, 8, 10%. It's a good deal for the citizens if we do it right. It's just a matter of doing it right.
I would maybe add, Councilman Moyer, that I think we have some really good guiding principles. There was that list of like 5 of them that we evaluate all our capital projects recently among. But some of them include economic development, some include sustainable infrastructure, some include engaged citizens, and I think something like solar, going heavier into solar energy would check off some of those boxes, and it would be, I think, evaluated properly with all the other responsibilities that the town has and infrastructure needs the town has. And so this is a goal, and I think this goal can be put alongside our principles and all the other projects. I think we can have a lot of success with that goal, meeting that goal, as well as doing all the other things that the Apex is planning to do.
Any other comments? No? All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll assume that was a motion.
I'll make the motion
All
on
right.
this then on this.
I'll second that one again.
Okay, all right. Discussion on the motion to adopt.
This is a mistake. This is a big mistake.
All right, not hearing anything else, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Absolutely not.
All right, that passes 4-1. We have now completed with new business. We now are going to close session, and I want to make sure I get the wording right for the record, to discuss the location or expansion of business or industry in the town of Apex, and to meet with the town attorney to discuss the handling of the matter of Upright Builders versus Town of Apex. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right, any discussion? All in favor of going to closed session for these items indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we're now going to close session and let the public be advised that we have no further items in open session tonight. Thank you.